waiting for the notification. Oh, okay, I've got the notification. Okay, interesting. I have like, I'm in the live, but not being added. I'm gonna request to go live next to you,
Okay.
and then maybe it'll. Okay, I just sent a request, so it should show up.
It says Ash Rubin wants to be in your video. I'll press on the thing that says. That's funny. I've already added you, but I'm adding you again. Add.
Cooking.
Yes, we did it.
We are live. We are direct. Oh my God, there's an echo on your end.
We made it happen. We made it happen. Yes. Okay. Hello. Hello,
I'll just
Facebook
shut
world.
my. Hello, Facebook world. Hello, Mark Zuckerberg.
Hello, Zuckers. I'll set us up, I'll intro this call so people know what the hell we're doing.
Sweet.
My name is Asha. I'm a coach for coaches and facilitators, and I'm the director of Blooming Festival, which is a transformational embodiment festival in the Northern Rivers, running from the 7th till the 10th of July. And we have the pleasure of having Trevor running a workshop at this festival, which is called Touching the Shapeshifter. And for people who don't know, Trevor is a body-mind healing facilitator and does some really amazing embodiment practice work, which is like stuff I haven't really encountered before. So Trev, I'm really looking forward to like unpacking what it is that you do and helping people understand and giving them a taste of it so they can decide like whether they want to work with you and also whether they want to come and check out this festival. So thanks, man. Thanks for coming on.
Pleasure, Ash. Thanks for having me. This should be fun.
Yeah. So Trev, let's start with touching the shapeshifter. For people who don't know anything about the work that you do, what is this workshop? What is it all about?
In summary, I guess I could just suggest that it's an extension of the embodiment, meditation, and trauma release work that I already do, and scaling it up to a group level, really, and inviting, gently, respectfully, lovingly challenging people to reorient a bunch of very indoctrinated and very enculturated assumptions we have about, I guess you could call, the nature of reality. There's some notifications. And the way that we bring those assumptions to the present moment is an absolutely massive and vital factor in how I work. And there are a lot of assumptions that we all carry about the world, about ourselves, about each other, about the universe we live in, about the ecologies we connect with or not connect with. And I just invite you to soften, I guess you could say is the best word, and sometimes even surrender those assumptions so you can make a far deeper contact with self and other and all the other entities that comprise your environment. Yeah.
Trev, I find your work very unique. I don't know other people who are doing it, and I've experimented with many, many different kinds of healing arts and bodywork and meditation and embodiment practices and breath work. I've tried so many different things, and I've not experienced stuff that's quite like what you do. So it can be challenging to really give people a sense of what it is. So I'm really going to ask you lots of questions to unpack
Go
it so
for it.
people get to appreciate it for what it is. And I want to start by sharing a little bit of my experience. So
Hmm.
when I received the session from Trevor, after that session, it was as if I'd done like a whole meditation retreat. But it was after 2 hours of presence. It was like days and days worth of presence compacted into 2 hours. And Trevor has this very unique ability to be able to pick up the quality and the flavor of a person's presence by putting his hands on your body. Like he can tell where your presence is and what kind of presence it is, and what, like as you said, what kinds of assumptions and dogmas and beliefs are coming through in a very somatic, visceral way, and then reflect that back to you. Well, Trevor reflected that back to me and described to me what was happening in the subconscious background of my experience as it was occurring. And the things that you described to me were extremely accurate. It was like, I'm hearing you telling me, and actually that resonates. And it revealed all these layers of conditioning that I was experiencing in the moment, so that I then had freedom of choice to engage with them or step out of them. And yeah, it was deeply profound for me. It really transformed the nature of my relationship to my body in a way where it's like a right at the core, right at the roots of my experience of life. Like it was my relationship to sensation was changing, and I felt liberated, and chronic pain patterns that have been persisting with me for a very, very long time, I found them releasing. Ones that I thought were purely physiological, it revealed that there was this psychosomatic or psychological dimension to them where I actually had a point of choice in how I was being with them. And that was extremely relieving and liberating for me. And it really grounded me more into my body. So I'm like deeply grateful for the work that you do.
Oh, thanks, brother.
Yeah,
That was a beautiful articulation. Thank you. I feel really honored, and that was
yeah,
very concise and distinct, and I really enjoyed your flavor, so thanks.
great, great. And that's just one experience, right? I'm sure you have different experiences with different people.
Oh, yes.
Mm,
Big diversity.
yeah. So is there anything that you want to springboard off that? Anything you want to say about the work that you do based on what you heard from me?
Yeah, I've spent the last 13 or 14 years now being extremely devoted and extremely curious about the ways we habitually resist the world, and in turn tax our entire psychophysiologies because of all the energy that that resistance requires. And I've come to formulate a very unique modality which I was personally needing from my own history, my own trauma patterns, my own personal needs to heal myself. And I wasn't finding them in any what I would consider a more complete form in other modalities. And I'm not criticizing other modalities by any means. It's just there was a whole bunch of things missing, especially around the role that cultural conditioning plays in the way it teaches us, coerces us, manipulates us, pushes us to resist life as it is, and in turn desensitize ourselves from the ecologies that used to be our reference for understanding and feeling ourselves. And now we've become, in my opinion and on my perception, we've become a lot more self-referential. And, you know, loosely, crassly speaking, that's led to a whole bunch of neuroses and feedback loops in our own minds that are taxing our bodies. And I've developed a modality which speaks to those assumptions I spoke about earlier that we bring to every moment, which are so vast and so indoctrinated and so entrenched that you need to come in from side angles, which is what I do. I come in from the back door, I come in from side angles, and I coax you to reorient your perception a little, because in that moment, I'm perceiving you as a billions of years old evolutionary organism with boundless history, memory, time perception, trauma response and adaptive capacities, and coaxing you to just surrender the assumptions, the beliefs, which have neuromuscular holding patterns in your whole body. And as you soften the assumptions, so does your body, and in turn, contact is possible again. And in turn, your body has the literal space, energy, and time to reorganize itself, which, you know, some people like yourself might call healing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my bounce back on you. That was adequate.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that was good. I'm bringing up lots of questions. I'm like writing them down, but
Yeah,
one,
sweet. Hit me.
well, I want to speak to a piece to really ground this. It was like you mentioned neuromuscular holding patterns,
Yeah,
and that is the aliveness for me. It's like the junction between posturing, like how we hold our posture, how we hold the tension in our muscles, and
yeah.
then emotion and thought. So it's like,
Well,
we, go ahead.
oh, sorry. I was just going to say that, you know, our belief systems, which we all have, are a kind of attitude, and each belief we have is a form of attitude. And I'm constantly perceiving with my own hands and my own sensitivities, which I may or may not speak about today, how those attitudes correlate innately with your whole body physiology, your psychophysiology. So I've come to the point in my so-called depth of listening where every impulse and every thought you have are based on your conditionings, based on your beliefs, based on your life experience, but also based on your entire evolutionary history. And in my opinion and experience, your attitudes, your beliefs are psychophysically postured. And you can change those posturings. It's a literal phenomenon. The way you posture yourself in the world, the way you hold on, the way you protect yourself. Like, in my opinion, we've become, as a partial necessity, we've become extremely protective of ourselves to the point where we, on a societal, cultural, globalist level, we're now dissociating immensely and we are desensitizing. This is not our natural disposition. When shit goes down, so to speak, when a threat presents itself, we tense up, we desensitize, we dissociate enough, and we focus, we fixate, and we deal with the threat. Or we run from the threat, the fight, the flight, the fawn, whatever we need to do to respond. In my opinion, we're living in, to speak, you know, absolutely, but in my opinion, it's mostly true. We are living in what I perceive to be permanent fight and flight. And I've developed techniques to coax my clients, the people that receive my work, out of fight and flight and into their senses again. And somatically, experientially, to use that term, enable the wounded aspects of you to directly, presently witness that you're not in a fight anymore. You're safe now. And, you know, including this man before you with his hands on your body, which has a a hell of a lot of politics to it. We gently move through those politics and get to the child level that's constantly posturing and therefore preparing for the worst to happen. And I use various techniques to invite you to stop preparing for the worst to happen and to calm down and be curious again and actually sense your environment, because that's the critical piece that's missing, in my opinion, on an individual level, but also cultural level. Yeah. I hope that explained a bit.
Yeah, it does. And I'd like to speak to my own experience to like give a bit more directness to the description.
Sure.
So one example was, I think the phrase you used was like, feel your parents in your face. Is that right? Feel your parents, something like that. And I
your parents'
received,
faces in your faces.
yeah, feel your parents' faces in your face. And
yeah.
like so as I received that instruction at the right time and in the right context in the middle of the session, I could feel how my face was shut down or mute, or neutral, and that was a dissociation pattern in my body that was preventing me from feeling the discomfort, which was then redirected into the back of my head. And then when I allowed my face to feel, it was like all the muscles in my head were starting to shift and recalibrate and reorganize. And it felt like the emotion was just pouring out of me. Old, deep emotion was just like releasing and letting go, and uncomfortable, but moving and changing. And these are old patterns. I've done a lot of body work. I've done a lot of therapy. I've done a lot of like all the things, and they'd never moved. But in this practice, they did, and that's like quite thrilling, quite special. So yeah, I want to speak to the power of this. I guess that's what's coming through me.
Yeah, thanks. It's actually quite thrilling for me as well when you surrender that way, because in my perception of how deeply interconnected we all are, when you have the courage and the capacity and the surrender to actually change your psychophysiology, therefore your neuromusculature, your myofascia, all these aspects of the body, you're changing your mind. And when you're changing your mind, you're changing me. And I get to experience what you might call the thrill, or what you could also call the ecstasy, the beauty, the wonder, the mystery of, metamorphosis or shape-shifting in real time, because you were rearranging the musculature on your face. I could go into that for hours, but I'll just quickly connote why that specific technique you mentioned fascinates me. Is I've come to realize, and this is just through deep nervous system bioenergetics listening over many years, I realized about 3 years back that the default setting you mentioned in your face, I think you used other words, but something like that, default setting of your face, which was entrenched and, rigid that way, I've come to realize is kind of the face of the victim. And every time you remember a wound in your life, there's that face experiencing that wound, that humiliation, that betrayal, that, whatever happened to you, that abuse, that, So I realized your default, you could call it like a default mode network. It's a neurological term, but you could repurpose that term to call it a kind of a default mode network you have, which is quite victimized. And I find that pretty much everyone I've worked with has a degree of victimhood, which is deeply entrenched and semi-permanently present at all times. but you can reckon with it and you can deconstruct it. If you get out of your own belief systems and neuroses way and let your own inherent ancient intelligence take over to deal with it, because, you know, loosely speaking, that intelligence that you really are has very likely been through far, far worse than your particular life. And so it's probably got this, you know. And so, yeah, you see where I'm going with that.
Yeah, yeah, and like for like quite an enduring time after the session, I felt more a layer of resistance to life dropping away, subconscious resistance to life, and a layer of
Yeah.
ease with living, and drinking in resource, just like constantly drinking in resource from sensation, simply from the experience of life. Life was nourishing me
Yeah.
in a way that, whereas life is typically ordinarily quite draining, and it became quite nourishing. And I was so moved. It was fucking cool, man.
Oh, yeah, it was a pleasure to
Yeah.
witness you too. And I really enjoyed the unique ways you showed up and the
Mm.
courage you had too, actually. Because I know there were some wounds there that were hard. And
Yeah.
I felt them with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you.
So I wanna broaden the context beyond my experience, and I want to
Sure.
hear from you, like, as people start to mm, loosen up these holding patterns and um, trust in the depth of their inherited wisdom from their genetic lineage and their evolution and their ancestors,
Mm.
and from life and the sensory environment. When they start to do these things, what are the enduring shifts that you see in the people who you work with? How do they change? What is their experience of life different?
It's very highly diverse because people come to me with different intentions of what to heal. However, some generalities would be um, a lot more awareness in the moment of how they sabotage themselves, how they criticize themselves, like that simple stuff that lots of self-development kind of modalities explore and offer. Um, uh, a, a lot more presence insofar as you're actually, like you described, you're actually energizing your body and nourishing your body, and you're allowing your environment, everything you're sensing, the earth in general, to nourish you. Because usually, quite often, on a culturally normative level, we're just shutting that stuff out and denying it. And we, like you talked about, we use a lot of energy to resist that level of nourishment and healing energetically, bioelectrically, neuromuscularly, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's vast and it's endless, and there's so many levels to it. But generally speaking, I just coax you to soften that resistance and let it in. Other benefits. A lot of people have come who are like 30 years meditators, and they're often quite confronted by the ways they're not present still and the ways that they're still holding on. And I offer them tips and ideas around what they might be defaulting to in their techniques. And so I've become a bit of a meditation coach of sorts, inadvertently. Wasn't the plan, but I'm finding myself coaching or teaching people how to meditate more softly, effectively, and with less rigid assumptions and postures, like I keep referring to, interfering with that meditation. So shift from, you know, some kind of boring stillness to ecstasy. That's the big difference. Lots of conditions have people have healed. I've often found myself to be the last resort for a lot of people. They've tried osteopathy, physiotherapy, various other modalities, and they just can't heal their shoulder that's been stuck for 20 years, for example. And it's, in my experience and perception, it's solely because it's a completely emotional problem. And we get into the emotions and the way, and the very structural way you posture yourself into those emotions permanently. And I start offering various reorientations of your perception of the moment until that emotion becomes irrelevant, you could say. So that's another common benefit. Digestion issues, all kinds of issues, because I think I'm not big noting myself here at all. I think I became effective at this work because at the end of the day, whilst I've put a lot of time into listening, and that's where I've accrued skill, at the end of the day, I know that this is not me. I know that this is just an evolutionary intelligence, which has always done its thing and always will. And I just coax you to find your own evolutionary intelligence as best as possible. And yeah, there's various conditions on the psychological and physiological that have been healed with this technique, because the essential, the key factor to this is I keep you present and I don't let you out of it. And the cumulative effect of actually staying present, which none of us do, like 3 seconds, we're gone. We've checked out into some idea of what we like to think is happening. And then I bring you back because I can feel when you've checked out, the charge in your body has dropped by a factor of 10, for example, and it's really obvious. So then we reclaim the presence and we continue. And the cumulative effect of the presence is what releases a whole ton of systems in the body and gives them more free rein to operate and function the way they want to. Yeah.
Well put. Well put. I'm getting lots of hearts and thumbs up from the people who are listening.
Oh, hi guys. Thank you.
So this is what you do in your one-to-one sessions.
And that also transfers to the workshop. That's what I'll be doing.
So how does this play out in a group workshop setting? How do you do this?
Well, I don't want to say too much because I like the element of surprise. Because if I tell you exactly what I'm going to do, then the subconscious mind will bring its prepared resistance to that. It will have figured it out. It will have deconstructed it. It will have come up with some ideology or rationality that confronts it. And that's what I'm about. Reckoning with and sidestepping and transcending. So having said that as a caveat, I invite you to be aware of what this group is for you in the moment and how it's contacting you, how it is affecting you. And I proffer various techniques which are very subtle, yet very deconstructive. So you can actually become present, and then there's a kind of what's called a rhizome forms in the group, which is a kind of a networked organism, you could say, which is non-linear. It's not about getting from A to B, or so to speak. It's just you're all collaborating and drawing on each other's intelligence. And another word for rhizome, as some other modalities use, you could say you're forming a constellation. And I will facilitate and guide that constellation based on what I'm literally, perceiving energetically, and go in, like I do in my own work, go in feedback to that and offer up different interpretations to either inspire or dismantle or destabilize your armored assumptions about what's happening in this moment. And that in turn leads to similar results, and people alter their consciousness and have embodied experiential, somatic, ecological realizations about themselves, and realize there's more to draw on than they dare imagined in terms of animating their life and dreaming their life into existence, to speak in a bit more of a magic sense. Yeah.
feel excited. I feel like genuinely excited.
Well, I look forward to feeling that excitement when we work together,
Yeah,
because that's
yeah,
what it's about. And that excitement too is a form of intelligence, and we can utilize that. And I'm sure someone who's not so excited in that group will benefit from that, because it's all transferred and exchanged. And I've witnessed incredible exchanges and transfers happen between human beings, not just in my one-on-one work, because
yeah,
we're always collaborating, whether we know it or not. And that intelligence is always at work. And if you coax it into a position where that intelligence can exchange and move more efficiently, magic happens, and healing happens, and release happens. Yeah.
gorgeous.
Hope that made sense, because that making sense is what I'm all about.
That did make sense. Yeah. So this, I'll speak more broadly to this festival for the people who are listening. This festival is designed to be a really nourishing and supportive, safe environment for you to step out of your day-to-day identity and experience new ways of being through lots of different workshops and through lots of different influences. And there's going to be fun and celebration and feasting and all those things that we do as community together. And it's also going to have a depth and a presence and a slowness and a patience, so that it can really run deep and you can really feel it through your bones. And I think your offering is just such a beautiful contribution to the buffet of different workshops and experiences that can be had, and that it's going to provoke changes in people's self-perception, perception of self and perception of other and perception of community, that they can then bring to the rest of the festival and then out into their lives, and that we can, as a collective, like recalibrate our identities and our belief systems and our goals and our meanings, and then go out into life and live in truer connection to our deepest truth. That's my desire. That's my intention. So to the people who are listening, if you'd like to come and join me and Trev and go on a wild, wacky adventure where there's going to be opportunities for healing and growth and self-discovery and looking like an absolute idiot on the dance floor and eating food together
That'll be me.
and sitting by the fire. Yeah, I'd love for you to join us. Yeah.
Wow. Well said.
Mm.
And thanks for
Travis,
inviting me too.
oh, my pleasure, man. My pleasure. Like for the people who are attending, that is my intention, what I described, but also my intention is to provide a platform for masters of embodiment to share their gifts. And I certainly put you in that category. Yeah.
Shucks.
I'm going to just stop fanboying over you and actually speak to what the audience needs to hear. So if someone's on the fence and they're thinking about coming to Bloom, what is your message for them?
Well, what you just said was quite inspiring, because especially that what for me is a very key word, patience. And I'm experiencing that the whole world is running out of patience with ourselves, each other, and on various scales and levels. And for me, patience is presence. And I invite people who are willing and feeling it literally in their bones to come and practice patience with each other, which for me, yeah, is just presence. And presence, it's just only a matter of time. If you stay present and you keep practicing presence, you keep returning to presence, that insight emerges, healing catalyzes, and you become less self-referential and more ecologically referential, which is what our world, our planet deeply, urgently needs now. And to speak to what you said also, this is how we change the politics of the world, by reckoning with the way those same politics are deeply strictured into our own bodies and unwinding them from here, our hearts, our minds, and witnessing the profound impact and effect of that on a complex systems and collective level. And it's not to be underestimated, and we are underestimating it. So let's get together and overestimate it, at least.
Yeah. There's something really exciting and special about meeting with people who have a shared intention that runs so deep about changing our minds, and that there's a power in doing this together as community that you spoke to with the constellations piece. And yeah, I'm quite excited to see what's going to happen when there's like 150 people who come together with that shared intention, and all the offshoots of that are going to emerge and ripple out into people's lives and communities.
Yeah, I'll be listening very deeply the whole time, and I'll no doubt learn new things from the way that intelligence combines and collaborates and constellates itself. So I'm really excited too. Thank you.
Okay, that feels quite complete on my end. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we finish up?
I guess to add to what I'll be doing in the workshop, I'll be loosely exploring what some people call animist cosmovisions, and inviting people to apprehend the world on a more networked basis, where all beings have their own personhood and have their own innate intelligence, and invite more curiosity about connecting with other intelligences, other species, other beings, other planets, other solar systems, whatever, and just seeing what emerges from that. Yeah.
Cool.
So thank you.
Yeah, beautiful. If you want to get a ticket to the festival and you want a little discount, you can message Trev. He's got a coupon code for you. Trev, thank you. Thank you so much for the work that you do. Yeah, really looking forward to your workshop. Trevor's also going to be offering bodywork at the festival. And so if you want to do a one-to-one session, that'll be available. Bring some cash. Yeah, that feels complete. Hope you have a beautiful day, Trev. I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you so much, Ash. This was more fun than I expected.
Beautiful. Okay. Bye, mate.
Bye, mate. Thank you. Bye, guys. Thanks, everyone.